What up, everyone? It's time for another stream again, as always. And well, so far I only had two people here, and only one is going to be playing for. The other one just used to be watch. Oof. Sorry about that. Yeah, G5 is about only 5 days away. I can also say this. Um, Opaline had the ability to steal other people's opponent's Q mark for some reason, and unlike um, Starlight did. She she eventually took only two cutie marks in a no wait only one cutie mark from the actual series itself and two from a Tail to Tail. I can now tell that she actually took uh Alpha Battle's cutie mark. She took Misty's cutie mark. She took basically even the main five, including Sunny's. She took all the main five's cutie marks. She revealed herself to the whole Equestria on this live stream, and yeah, so she defeated the main five in an instant. She took all their cue marks and they lost their magic. She she rose their power and fall down. All I can say is that they eventually got their cue marks back. But how did that possible without the magic? Well, there was some other type of magic they used. They actually had help from one particular source that was unexpected, which were those magical trees that grows in Bridlewood and the one that grow in Maritime Bay. Those trees are magical. That was confirmed in chapter 5. But some reason they were combined together and gave the ponies some new form of magic, including Earth ponies and Pegasus. And well, and they defeated Opaline. She literally walked in to Maritime Bay through the tree, and she had two dragons with her, full-grown dragons. She controlling them. And here's the most shocking of those dragons had cutie marks. I was like, what? There is no way for dragon to actually have, you know, cutie marks? I was like, true, unless they're pony dragon hybrids, but it's right now it's hard to tell. I mean, those dragons from the G5 may just simply be hybrids, or they could have been a subspecies, or even a whole different species of the dragons. After all, it's possible, considering it. I can give someone one example. Dragons in our world, if you look at different part of the world, there are different variations. The European dragons, as the most typical medieval dragons that we know of, scales, breathing fire, wings, ferocious animal. But if you go to Asia, China, Japan, or like that, they are dragons also. But those dragons doesn't have the same wings. as our dragons in Europe has. And those dragons in Asia, they were like serpent in shape. And if you go to the New World, like Central America, there are actually one dragon being in Aztec mythology that has wings with feathers. That is considered as a dragon. So in our world there are three types of dragons that we know of. But if you go to dragons in Harry Potter, there you have dragons from all over the world. You have ice dragons, you have fire dragons, so and even lightning and thunder light dragons. So dragons itself, it's possible that these dragons from G5 might just be other subspecies, hybrids, or maybe a whole different dragon species. And how is it possible that those dragons could be in a whole different one? Well, you have to consider one major factor, which would be evolution, but also environment. Because in G4, Dragonlands or Scale Islands, that are also known as, it was complete barren wasteland. The only animal that could live in Dragonlands was just dragons. But in the G5, Dragonland still exists, but it is not itself as a big, because in G4 it's Dragonlance is is portrayed as part of a continent, but in G5 it's been portrayed as an island. And Dragonlance in G5 were no longer a barren wasteland. It was a large rainforest. And well, it's possible. And how is it possible that the rainforest on the island could have been different from compared to before? Well, I only an idea. After the magic disappeared, what if what if the magic somehow had an effect on the island or the land? And without the magic, it simply just allow it to change. I know that it may be a little bit far fetched, but there also it also my possibility is just that the world or the climate change is also a possibility because in our world, climate change can affect many areas. Like as the global temperature rising, many landmass is end up underwater. But if you look, say in America, for example, U.S. has many different varieties of climates. You have deserts, you have mountain range, you have maybe not rainforest, but you have very dense bayous or swamp areas. Those areas itself can change over time. Maybe not indirectly by cut down the trees or anything, but the environment could eventually change. One day, those bayous can be considered as maybe a complete desert, or it change from a bayou to a simply dense woodland. The water cell itself can be just dry up, and the ground will be solid, so a new type of plant life can grow. And it's in many cultures in history, like Aztecs and the Mayans. They cut down all different part of their forest, change that to grow their own crops, and it happens. But But the dragons on the G5, it's yeah, it is a bit difficult to know for sure if it is gonna be hybrids, subspecies, or even the whole type of dragons. I mean, those dragons have hair, and G4 dragons didn't have any, except Frocellus, who changed into a dragon, but I wouldn't even count that as much of that. Unless unless a dragon that looked like Spike and Rarity and no wait, the one the dragon that Rarity and Twilight dressed as. And we don't even know the full size of a of a full grown dragon. We know that Torch, Amber's father, he's one of the big ones. We don't even really don't know if every single dragon will be grown to that size. It's hard to tell. I mean, people are like Spike grew tall twice. Well, first time that was when Twilight were doing her entrance exam to the School of Gifted Unicorns by accident. Second time, well, that was when he was full of greed. So I don't think those times can count. But I mean, you don't even know if Spike is able to grow that big. I mean, it's hard to tell. I even seen this fan made story in a video of where Godzilla, for some reason, comes to uh, Equestria to even Polnaville, starting the rampage during Berserk in the whole town, and Twilight's idea to commit to everyone to throw their most treasured belongings into Spike and turn him to greed dragon mode in order to fight. And the reason why Godzilla was actually there was that he was on vacation. He came to Equestria for vacation while Tokyo was rebuilding itself. I was like, vacation. And you going rampage for a vacation. Most people, when they're doing a vacation, is just relax and just almost do nothing. But yeah, that was weird. And especially in the end of that video where Discord, he was actually he appeared. He was having this meeting of kaijus like King Dora, uh, and some other kaijus, but only one. But he was very much disappointed and wouldn't even allow to be there was Scylla, not Godzilla that we know of, but the one from the 1998 movie, that Godzilla. And the funny thing is about this that this court took papers, but those papers was actually the white tip of his tail. He just grabbed the tail and had it turn it to papers. And when he was resting his arm against this like black um, um, black line in the bottom of the screen, and it suddenly collapsed beneath him, and he just fell down. uh, They would have used Fluttershy um, to talk to Godzilla in that video, but she wasn't even actually in town. She was at this animal sanctuary, which turned out in this video were Monster Island, where she was talking to some of the other kaijus or other monsters that Godzilla have been fought against. I mean, it was crazy. And Spike, he did defeated Godzilla. It ended up in a tie. And he suggests to Godzilla that he goes somewhere else to have his rampage. And the other place he did send Godzilla was to where they had MLP G3 version from. That the baby gun, baby Skululu and all that. It was, yeah, that was pretty cool. But yeah. And it's getting colder over here, 21 degrees. Not cool at all. Well, seems, well, just expect the winter though, Cody. Winter has actually officially arrived to Sweden only about a few weeks ago. I don't know if I actually haven't thought to mention this. Some crazy maniac actually had a rampage where I live. Quite literally, this maniac or this man was wielding an axe. Quite literally, an axe, and chased a lot of people around. I believe what had happened was actually on not that far from where I live. Actually, only about I think maybe one or two streets away from where I live. But it's complete maniac chased by some people with this axe. Well, the police came and they shot him. I don't know if he. I don't know if we're supposed to be shot or if he died or anything. It just. I don't know. I mean, having someone like that chasing around someone with an axe or a knife or. Whew. Well, that's unusual. But especially where I live, things like this doesn't happen at all. I mean, most major crimes where I live, it's almost like non-existent. I mean, my community is basically, uh, well, lack of major crimes. It's only the most people that do this that are driving under influence of other drugs, alcohol, or some violence attacks or the systematic violence like that. But it's most of that. There have been two bomb threats to local bank where I live, but false alarm. I think it was last year. There was this secondhand store where I live. They received this big freaking grenades. I'm not kidding. There were actual grenades, like big ones. I think probably maybe 1 or 2 feet long, This was like this. If those could have been for maybe from a tank, and the staff were really concerned, so they called for the police, and the police called in for the National Bomb Squad. They came, sealed off the whole building and the street around, and they later left. Turned out that that grenade was real, and it was heavy, but it was filled with concrete, so it was harmless. But yeah, I can understand why the staff wanted to have the police just in case. I mean, who would know? I mean, if that grenade or grenades were actually still much alive, and if those grenades were 1 to 2 feet long, they could cause huge damage. And even to this very day, bombs from the Vietnam War can still be found in Vietnam jungles, like landmines, bombs from the planes, still around in jungles. Even bombs, actual bombs from World War I and II, can still be found scattered in Europe. As it's from only a few years ago, they actually found, I believe it was a bomb from the Second World War. I think it was in Germany, if I remember correctly. And this wasn't a small bomb. This bomb, if I remember correctly, it was either between 5, 6 feet long and a weight of at least a few 100 pounds. And if that bomb it was still much active, and it was buried under the ground for at least a few feet, but it could still like cause a massive damage. And the bomb wasn't even located like in the outskirts, like in the suburbs or even in the countryside. This one was near downtown of this particular town. It was things like this happens all the time. They can actually found this type of bombs even in the UK for other places and France, you name it. I mean, after all, Europe was the main, unless the second half was probably the um, Pacific Ocean, but still, if you were to somehow come across a bomb like that, don't do anything. Just simply back off slowly, call for police, and have that problem resolved. I actually seen videos on YouTube where guys were actually magnet fishing. Some of the guys were finding all kinds of things, like from uh, shopping carts, bicycles. But a few guys was on at this river from a bridge. They found all kinds of things. I think one of them actually found a clock, not like a watch, but a clock, uh, a firearm. They found at least a few handguns, even grenades, and even a rocket launcher grenade, and even a few hand grenades. But he always called it for police. But most of those grenades or weren't active. They were completely harmless. But I mean, you don't want to take the risk. Trust me, you really don't. So, Mr. Game Guy, what are you reading? Steak? Yeah, I don't think I actually have an actual lemonade before. Like, not like lemon flavored. I I did have something similar to that, but it was pink lemonade, and I have no idea what what was made of. And assuming Roy is at the gym, yeah, since no one else is showing up, yeah, I think I skipped this game stream today, since basically no one else is showing up. So I was originally doing this game show stream about MLP, but since no one else did want to show up to join part of it, Hayden was, yeah, pretty much. I mean, Hayden, he was very epic to do this, but I put the link in the DM where he is part of, but that crazy maniac is not even online. Well, he's not even online right now, so I wouldn't know if he's playing Fortnite or not. Uh, Mental illness? I wouldn't say that. It's hard to tell though. I mean, especially the time when he said that he was gonna be playing, and he did. And he was said that he was gonna take a break, that he's gonna do leave for only a few minutes, that he was gonna take a shower, and that he will be back. But I don't know exactly how much internet it was, but assuming it was at least about um maybe around 5 minutes or so, he left. And when I just looked back in Discord, I think it was actually Game Guy who said that he saw that he was online again on Discord and that he was playing Fortnite. I was like, there's no way. So I went there to look. Sure enough, he was playing Fortnite, and but that was until like 10, 15 minutes, I believe, after he left. When Game Guy noticed that he was actually playing Fortnite, I believe it was around that amount of time. And since Malachite was actually Hayden's teammate, and boy, I don't tell you, he was. It was pretty odd. I mean, he just simply left, and I mean, he said that he's going to take a shower and be back in a few minutes or in a moment later, but he just left and decided to just play Fortnite. And at the time when he was part of it, he said that he was gonna do some business. And what did he do? He would just not just play Fortnite instead. I mean, come on. I mean, he decided to simply play Fortnite. Rather than being part of the game show stream that he was a big part of. I mean, it. Yeah, it was one of those times. You know, a lot of things actually changed for when Hayden suddenly showed up and that. Even the first time he was part of the stream, I think it was actually the I think it was actually the second or first stream that Gensho stream we did what about cryptids. He was called a friend, and he said that was a lot of C's as an option answer. You know, one of the earliest Gensho streams only had three options, like A, B, C, but later now added to D. There were another Gagel stream that were supposed to be part of, but unfortunately, it was about you know uh, Mario. But sadly, that was we were probably like halfway through, and it was just complete uh, trash. It was complete disaster. And well, Crystal Shan is in the comments. Well, she were. Um, but yeah, when I just looked after those Mario games, I just later find out there were different other later re-release of the same game but to other consoles. Like some were actually for PC, for computer. Later they were for Nintendo this Switch or something. I was like, um, I was like, what? So if I would do another one of Mario, um, I may have to be doing a lot more research on that one. I mean, currently I have how many quests do you have? Let's see. Well, uh, okay. Just to be brought this up. Crystal Shan using an Android slash Chrome, which has a bug that can cause echo. So just the guys, it says also for now, please ask your guests to wear headphones to avoid echo or use a different browser. But I was like, okay, I was that part was really the first ever. And where have you been? Unless it is, yep, it's her. Um, is those characters Springtrap and Mangle from Five Nights at Freddy? Crystal? Nope. Have you guys yeah, by the way, can you guys handle to see the movie Five Nights at Freddy by any chance? Well, don't worry, she's back. I mean, it depends on if her mic is working, cause hmm, she can't hear anyone. Yeah, we can't hear her a single word unless she's talking. Um, um. By the way, have you guys seen the Five Nights at Freddy movie? Well, if you're referring to Five Nights at Freddy movies sequels, um, yeah, actually, I read about Five Nights at Freddy just before the official release of the movie that there were discussions of making two movies as sequels to that first one, but only if the first movie were a success, if it's a hit. So is potentially like there might be a second and a third sequel to that movie. I haven't seen it myself yet, but I've seen clips of it, and all I can say is I was a little disappointed on that. I mean, I knew that there were this purple guy. I mean, the guy in the from the murder is known as Purple Guy in the games, but in the movie they actually gave him an official name. Yeah, but I think he's mostly known as a Purple Guy. And those children, those kids, were taken and placed in those animatronic suits, and that this guy, Mike, that's gonna be the new security guard. He actually had to. They added a new character to in the movie. This young girl. I first believed maybe that was his daughter, but it turned out it wasn't even his daughter at all. It was actually his sister, like youngest sister. And assuming this Mike guy was in his 30s, early 30s or late 20s or something, and then his sister was in around say I would say maybe around 8 or 10. So either that she is half sister, um, um, well actually, a purple guy was actually he that's actually at least for the time, purple guy was actually his official name for a while. Well, 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 Mr. Hayden, you're late. So, yeah, Purple Guy was actually his name for at least in the game until, but yeah, well, Hayden, we were supposed to be doing a envelope quiz today, but not anymore. Yeah, but passing more half of that, so maybe next time. But in this, it might have been a little spoilers. But this guy Mike, he and a younger brother was murdered, but they never found the killer. Well, turn out the same guy that hired him as security guard was actually the serial killer the whole time. And this female officer, well, she actually was more as a try to warn him, Mike, about his animatronics and introduce him to them and all that. And I was like, really? And to most my astonishment, turned out that woman, Vanessa, was actually the daughter of the serial killer that killed Mike's younger brother. And she was actually a full aware that her father was a serial killer the whole time, but she never told anyone or even the police about it. Seriously. And, well, he ended up in this suit. Yeah, Cody, this is only what I read about this, of course, and I haven't even seen the movie myself, but, you know, if you just I always read the new information about this new game, this new movies, but when they release that on Wikipedia. That's why I know so much about it. So, um, but there is actually one series of Five Nights at Freddy on YouTube, um, where Foxy was actually in a relationship with Mangle, and Freddy was the one actually running the whole pizzeria for some reason. And all of them were actually talking. I think the guy who made this called Tony Crywolf. It's pretty cool. Uh, old memories. I wouldn't know. I mean, they finished this whole series off about 1 or 2 years ago, I believe it was. But they can still be watched as a full video on YouTube. I think it's over an hour or 2 hours long. I mean, Five Nights at Freddy is even though I never played the games or any of the spin-off games at all, it's you know, it's a not pretty bad series to be honest, but I was never much a catcher to that. I mean, the same as for other franchise like you know, Legend of Zelda. They made this series of Zelda. Uh, I don't know if it was in the 90s or 80s, where Link has his catchphrase. Well, excuse me, princess. Every single time we did something. Uh, I don't know if you guys know about this YouTube channel called Dorkly. It's pretty cool. They're done a lot of, you know, um Pokemon, Mario contest videos and all that. It's pretty cool. Live action version of Zelda movie. Hmm. I knew that they were planning on doing a Minecraft movie, but it hasn't been given like an official release date or official name. So I wouldn't know. I mean, Super Mario Bros. Movies as a game. or I think you know you can say this. Uh, the newest Super Mario Bros. Would be considered the first official movie, since the first one that they did a live action version was not even anything remotely to as considered as a Mario. I mean, even they have some of the creature names, Goomba, all that. It's like no. Dwayne Johnson actually is going to play his role as uh, Maui, the demigod, in Moana live action with the next 2 years. He actually, um, Dwayne Johnson even played a role in actually in a game of the movie where that he was the captain of this riverboat, but turned out he was had always been a captain of a boat. Turned out he was actually a conquistador, of those Spanish explorers. Okay, you guys probably know about this game franchise, Mortal Kombat. I know that in fact had done a few live action movies of that game, and even one live action of Dragon Ball, which um I actually have seen. I think I saw one Mortal Kombat movie, and I'll say this: I was rating for one. If I would give the rating stars as a rating 1 to 5, I would give it absolute 0. It was not good at all. And Resident Evil, uh, never played the games, but seen the movies. Well, technically, I hadn't seen all the Resident Evil movies. I haven't seen the reboot, and not even going to. Um, the Resident Evil movies are, how would say, uh, boring. It just, Resident Evil movies are so bad, despite seeing almost all of them. But I mean, come on. First, okay, Hayden, reasons why I don't like those movies. I'm not a big fan of zombie movies at all. I have seen a lot of other zombie movies over the years, but most of them was completely boring. For example, I saw this 28 days later, 28 weeks later, or actually, they're basically the same movie franchise. Uh, I mean, I might see some future movies of zombies, but depend on course what it's about. I mean, I have seen some of I did see some classical zombie movies from the 70s and 60s, I believe it was from. Huh. Crystal had to leave so that she can hear us. That makes sense. um, but there are, of course, if someone like, have you even so what about those classical horror movies like with those with Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers? Well, I can say this. I have seen one Jason Voorhees movie, Jason X. Um, about that, Hayden. What is it that 28 months later? Well, there were plans for a movie called 28 months later, but it it never happened. And that franchise is actually set place in UK, where this the first movie. Personally, I really didn't like any of those movies as much, despite watch those movies. But still, um, the first movie is where a group of animal activists released some chimpanzee that was infected by a virus called rage. And every if someone be bitten by even by a zombie in the arm or in the leg or basically anywhere else on the body, or even you get blood from an infected zombie in your eyes, you will turn into a zombie less than a few minutes. And the movie 28 Weeks Later is that has the name is for the text taking place 28 weeks after when 28 weeks after the first when the last official zombie had died. So US Army, or is it US military, they reclaim London, at least part of the city, to recolonize England again. Unfortunately, it didn't work out much. But here's one thing: there were actually one boy. He was somehow immune. He could still be bitten by a zombie, but they wouldn't. But he wouldn't turn. But he could still be affecting others. But yeah, um, other movies that are this also supposed to be those classical ones, Freddy Krueger. Not seen any of those. I did see one Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, but it was trash, absolute trash. It it was not good. Oh, World War C. Now that is a zombie movie I did see. The only country in the world in that movie that was not even overrun by zombies was Israel. And you know, the only thing that saved the rest of humanity in that movie, they would have to infect themselves with some deadly diseases. And how did they figure that out? Well, the father in this American family was actually in Israel for a research purpose. It was he he saw this very sick person on the street, and some zombies literally walked up this person and they somehow sniffed in the air and ignored the person completely. That gave him an idea. He had to go to CDC headquarters in the US, or I think it was other some medical center where he with one Israeli soldier survivor, a woman, they went um, to this place and they found a few survivors in that facility and they gave this idea. So they started infecting other survivors with similar deadly diseases, smallpox, typhus, something like that, in order to save them. So those people have this disease itself in their system. They can just simply walk among the zombies without being attacked. They were like immune. The word some talks about a sequel to that movie, but it hasn't even been yet made yet. Okay, have you guys seen I'm Legend with Will Smith? Oh, I hate him. Um, well, that's another kind of zombie movie. It's it was not as the same as the most typical zombies, but in this movie, which is set place around 2000. Uh, let me see. I'm Legend. The movie is from 2007. There is talks about making a sequel. Excuse me here. Excuse me. Come on, come on, come on. There is another older version of the movie from the 60s or 70s, I believe. Fortunately, nope. So basically, the word is they made a cure for cancer, and this was actually this genetically re-engineer the measles virus to cure cancer. But unfortunately, wait, it's again. Um, so unfortunately, the virus eventually they tested on a number of people. I believe around 1,000 or 1,500 people, and every single one had a version, a variant of cancer. Since you all know there are many different types of cancers, every single one of those test people, they give this vaccine. All of them showed no trace of the cancer whatsoever. But after those initial trials proven to be a success, they decided to make mass produce this vaccine. Unfortunately, however, it backfired. A number of people responded badly. Some started being showing a sickness, bleeding from their eyes and their nose. And Manhattan, which is the main place of the movie, is had been were to be sealed off. The military, or at least I believe those the Air Force and Army, they blew up every single bridge that was connecting to Manhattan Island to the rest of the landmass. And Will Smith was playing a doctor, or he was actually uh, he was a U.S. Army scientist that studied viruses. There is a word for that, but I can't even pronounce it well. So, but basically, he saw his family, his daughter, and his wife die when the plane or the helicopter crashed, and he survived alone in New York. He was attacked a number of times by these zombies, but he never got infected. He was naturally immune. And after this, millions of people out in the world end up having been to also be naturally immune. There were at the time this movie was made, about the world population was about 6 billion, and I do believe that he mentioned a certain number of people that was immune, and those people that were at least, I think was I think it was about, if it was 1 or 2 billion people that died from the original vaccine, or if there was just a few 100 million that died at the time, and later those survivors that was naturally immune would also be eventually killed off, not by the virus itself, but by the zombies who attacked them, killed them. So Will Smith he lived alone in New York for a number of years, but he didn't just simply live there as as like a hermit. He lived there. He dedicated for those number of years to find a cure to reverse those zombies back to living humans again. Eventually, he managed to, but let's say he did actually. These zombies, they weren't this typical zombies that they could just like this rotting flesh zombies type. They weren't. This was like zombie slash vampire type. They could stand in the sunlight without feeling burns on their body. That was another side effect of the vaccine, apparently. They still have their human appearance, but instead they turned it like a zombie vampire characteristics. They were complete ghostly pale and unable to speak, but only make those primitive words like screams and grunts like that, moaning or that type of communication. But they were at least they maintained their intelligence. They know of things, but they used to simply also driven by the basic animal instincts in order to um, how to say at least to communicate with each other and other this have been the instincts that drive themselves to search for food, attack for to spread the virus further and all that. It's some but basic animal instincts. But this Will Smith's character, he eventually find a cure, but he was approached by a young woman and a boy, not her son, but another two different survivors from a different place. They heard broadcast of there was a survivor colony somewhere in the US. But Will Smith, he said to them many times that that colony didn't even exist anymore. After those supposed survivor colonies stopped, they were wiped out. So, and Will's character, he survived those number of years alone. He did have a German Shepherd, and here's the thing: dogs could also be affected by this virus, regardless. So apparently, it wasn't even just humans alone, but also animals could have been affected. So, in order to maintain his sanity, he had placed out mannequins throughout the entire city, dressed them as people. He even went to a local, I'll say, a blockbuster location to rent movies and return some movies. And his apart on his house, he actually had access to running water, electricity. I think thanks to some solar panels and perhaps even gasoline generators or something like that. But he um, he was developing this cure. But first he tested on rats. Most trials end up being a big failure, but one did show promises. Then he went to human trials. I don't know how many zombies that he or those uh, vampire creatures that he tested on, but there was a number of them. But
20.
let's say that most of them were not good. But in the last one that he took from the street with those vampires in order to reverse it back to a living person again. It worked, and he draw blood from that cured woman and gave that blood to the other survivor that he encountered, and he blew up himself with hand grenade. And this woman and boy they eventually left New York and went to this supposed uh, U.S. colony survivors, the survivors colony, and it did actually still existed. And it was a movie that I had to seen the movie at least a number of times, and they actually hit the nail on that one. But Will Smith. Another thing about Will Smith's character, when he, in order to maintain his sanity, he played golf from an aircraft carrier that was in the harbor of New York. He would just stand on top of it and play golf. And he even drove around in the city in a muscle car, like a sports car or something. And he hunted deers. I believe it was a bow and arrow. I mean, if he used bullets, that's would eventually run out. I mean, unless that he could find some new sorts of bullets. But it's I mean, it's not like your typical zombie movies for most part, but it's actually not bad. But the other type of classical zombie movies, it's well, it's not one like that. Yeah, Cody, that makes sense. But you know, if you were in a world where zombies disaster happened, you know, you never know exactly how long that you can stay there. Because here's the thing: the normal typical food would it had a certain number of a certain time how long can be edible. Some certain items can last way longer, and there is actually so-called MRI, males ready to eat, which is a military graded uh, type of food. But this type of food is dry food, and but this is not only for military to be used. Any survival schools or classes can actually have this. And if you were to use weapons in order to survive, I would not be saying. Do you not have the type of weapon you can not be rely on is bullets for main weapon? You had to figure out that you can't just rely on just simply bullets, firearms, because eventually you ran out. As if for Walking Dead type of scenario, like what else? I don't know her name, but she used a sword, a katana, in order to attack. So I would recommend if you would being like that in a zombie disaster world like that, don't just be heavily reliant on firearms as a main weapon. Even if you have a huge storage of bullets in your possession, but eventually it will run out. If you don't have any more bullets and there are zombies attacking your door or your home, how would you be defending? Like you can't just, oh yeah, I'm going to use the rifle as a baseball bat, but eventually it didn't work. So any other type of weapons against zombies like sword, knives, or even I don't know, perhaps. Like if you will make um, axe that works, unless you make this like hidden. This is actually has been used and are in fact even still used to this day. This is a technique or trap that been used for centuries. That digging a hole and place short poles at the bottom and cover the hole with some to look in the natural ground, or or you can just simply use have in front of your shelter or bunker to have stakes, not like the stakes that you had, game guy, but wooden stakes like in front of the building. If they were ran towards it, they would just simply stab themselves. That technique also had been used for centuries, particularly in the medieval times, like if when they even Romans made that. But if you would eventually do, but had been doing this, make sure you always have other ultimate weapons because eventually you will run out of bullets unless you could manufacture your own bullets, which is you can do, but it's time consuming on that. But and another thing is food supplies. If you were having this, if you were living in this underground bunker, if you had this underground greenhouse, that would be a good source of food like vegetables and but what about power source? Well, you can just also another thing is you can't be rely on gasoline or diesel as the main fuel. That's another problem. Eventually you run out of that as well. Because if you use that to do main power the whole place, and if you use that to some other things in the bunker to power up, eventually that will also run out. So the main power source that I would use solar panels, wind power as most part, and yeah, and always have to also access to some clean water supply. If you have a well or if you have this recycle system, like you don't have to go somewhere else to get new clean water, but you can use reuse the same water over and over at the same time. And I know this sounds disgusting to use the same water over and over that you've been drinking and recycle, but this is actually proven system that even the astronauts on the space station use. And I mean, unless if you were part of a bigger community, like a colony of survivors, if you had this type of wall around your community that you were both a guard, hunter, and a farmer at the same time. Well, but here's the thing. If you live yourself and you wanted to live in a underground bunker and have firearms, but you always had to remember to have other ultimate weapons. Eventually, you would run out of bullets. So, axe, sword, knives, even wooden stake, even spears can be work as a type of weapons. And well, I mean, if I were to probably do that, I probably would even live in underground. Arrows could also work. Well, that if you were, if you can hit the target well enough. If you're a newbie by using bow and arrow and you hit the ground or if you hit the tree next to it, like God dang it, and hit next like if you yeah okay how about since we all know that typically that the zombies die if you cut off the head of them, but assuming if that they didn't die, like they remain alive, well, undead alive, but if you somehow took the head and put it somewhere in a dark place, and this main body itself was just walking around or crawling on the ground looking for the head, so they're they can be harmless, but just stay away from them anyways. But I mean, what if you were using a bow and arrow? You would just simply could just shoot it at their body, like the torso, their head. Oh boy. What if you literally shot them somewhere else, like in the eyes or straight in the groin, like ooh, eesh. Or if they had turned around and you shot them in their butts, they wouldn't even mind. After all, they're dead. Oh man, that's just. But personally, I would say if I was a survivor of a zombie disaster like that, I would probably want to live by myself. I would probably live somewhere, maybe this type of military base or fallout shelter or bunker, and try to reach out any other survivors by using a radio and broadcasting the same message over and over to see if there's any other survivors. There is actually one TV series that were on TV for some years ago. I don't remember exactly the name of it, but for some reason, all the electric power grid in the whole U.S. were like one day gone, and a number of years after, no one was unable to even reactivate any electronic devices. So they lived back to as they were like before electricity was even invented. But yeah, if you were living in that type of disaster, always have a good source of water supply, food supply, and a number of weapons that you can use in defending against yourself against zombies or even other survivors. Because if there are survivors out there, they cannot always be trusted. Some may be friendly, but others are just doing to fake their uh, to being, you know, faking their kindness in order to steal all your resources, like bullets, food, water, all that they can find. And that happens. Even like in doing riots, like when it can happen to almost anyone. I saw this in this TV series. This was actually from New Zealand, but this is no longer running though. Um, this was actually about a virus. For some reason, it killed off 100% of the adult population, only leaving teenagers and kids alive, unaffected. And those survivors eventually formed tribes in order to survive. And if that happens, well, maybe. But zombie disaster itself, as a concept, is very, very unlikely will ever happen. I can guarantee on that one. I mean, even though that we know that zombies has been talked about for centuries, like in voodoo religion, that has zombies. But I mean, there's zombies like from Zombieland or World War C or Dawn of Death. No, not at all. That type of vibe zombies doesn't exist, and probably they will never will either. But it's difficult to say. But the movies of where this virus that would attack and kill off people. Now that is a higher likely possibility could in fact happen for real. I mean, just look at some examples. Spanish flu, Black Death, or the plague. That was a simple virus that still killed many people. Anyone who can actually bioengineer a new version of the smallpox and release it to the air, make it airborne, or even be in the water or ground like that. So yeah, I saw this videos on YouTube actually past few days where Deadpool was the last hero on Earth, and that the zombies that kill off most people. He um he was bitten by a zombie, and nothing happened. Only 1 or 2 days later, himself turned into zombie and started killing people. And after he killed the last person, he went turned back to himself as as was before as being a zombie. And then he come across this community of survivors of older people. Well, let's say he killed all of them, as he's still being himself as a human. They had themselves killed off men and kids for some reason, but that was actually in the comics. But it's just, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Zombies, not possible for ever to exist. Virus, threats to being that could wipe out humanity, highly possibility. Depends on what type of virus it is. I mean, I do know that US and Russia had two labs where they have samples of the original smallpox. Even though smallpox is officially eradicated since the 70s, but those labs contain samples of the original virus just in case if this virus would mutate it. Because if it mutates, those original vaccine will have no effect. Even anthrax is a deadly. It's just game guy. What would you do if there was this zombie disaster happened? What would you do?
Uh, I don't know.
Hid in the basement with a baseball bat, hoping for better times.
Mm, probably.
Probably like praying to God, hoping for that. Wait, what? That's the first I ever heard. Even though I love Spanish, unlike Popeye. Well, if that's
That's
true,
not the
I will be shocked. Lemonade prevents kidney stones. Hmm. I wouldn't know.
mm,
You know, I actually asked my dad once about this. That if someone in the family that was if there were two people in a family that needed a kidney transplant, and that say if let's say if like say if say Game Guy and his two brothers Roy and Dylan needed a kidney, and that he was the only match in the whole family, and that like I asked if that would come to that type of scenario, would that the doctors give both the kidneys to those people that need it? He told me no, no hospital in the world would ever do that. They only take one. In fact, there is actually possibility that well, possibility, but there is actually common that some people do only is born with one kidney. I will tell you though, I had never experienced like a kidney stone, but my dad has, and based on what he told me, it's not pleasant at all. So yeah, so you haven't been up to though, Mr. Game Guy or Tired Guy.
Absolutely nothing.
You're not the only one. I got up around noon, and I was originally planning to bake gingerbread cookies with my niece, who was actually spending the night from yesterday to today. Well, I told my dad yesterday it was not possible yesterday because even though he bought the dough to do that, but he put it in the refrigerator, and he had to put it out from that and put it on the counter to be in being soft enough to be used. And if he had done that, it was taking at least a few hours in order to do so. And if it was soft enough around say 8 p.m. or around 9, yeah, it's very unlikely that I would even start baking because if it was me and my niece, would have been finished maybe around 10 p.m. and that's way too late for that. So I told my dad maybe to use the next day, but when I got up around noon, he and my niece had already started baking and it was even finished. I was like, what? And I even told them that I was supposed to be doing it, but it turned out that she was going home around 4 in the afternoon, which I wasn't aware of. So she was originally to spend the night to sleep either to tomorrow, it depending of course on how my parents was feeling. So yeah, I was like, okay, but there is always other more times than for that. So it's well well Cody, chapter 6 surprises. Well, all I can say is dragons will be part of it, since that's actually next Thursday when those will be released. And I'm still wondering what they had stored for Secret of Starlight, the movie they were supposed to be also been released the same day. I mean, it's I'm just very curious what they had in mind. Is that like Starlight Glimmer's secret? Like, is she still alive after all this time, like an alicorn, or did she left some sort of secret message behind, like the Twilight did? It's hard to say. I mean, it's impossible to tell right now what that movie itself is gonna have or anything. Considering that it's just hard to say what they had in mind store for that. And yeah, it's very unlike they would even know for now. And but I do think they might even release another trailer of Chapter 6 by before that release date. Unless they already had done that, but never actually looked it up though. But I'm really disappointed on that. That they simply decided to just simply end it. And even had it hasn't even been that long lasted. I mean, they released it. What was it? 2021. The first movie was actually 2020, so that's like 3 years ago. And even though that G4 ended 2019, and it was around the same time when they announced that this is going to be the final season of G5, G4, and it's going to be replaced by a whole different generation. And before all that happened, though, there were a lot of speculations like what they had in mind, like if it's going to be a whole new Gerber, new characters and all that based on the new kingdom, which but but the staff behind working on G4, they felt there was still much more of a question that could still been explored. Some areas that hadn't even been seen yet, or only been seen on the map, but never actually been visited or explored. So when I saw this designs of concept art of main six with complete different designs, like uh, only three of them will remain as they're supposed to be as. Rarity as a unicorn, Applejack as an earth pony, and Rainbow as a Pegasus. But Twilight was an earth pony, and Pinky was a Pegasus, and Fluttershy was a unicorn. I was like, what? And when I even read that Hasbro decided to bring back some new characters into the series, I was like, okay, at least that happens all the time when they brought some other characters from in G4, like She's Sandwich, when they brought Discord, later evolved Forex, and many others. I was like, okay, makes sense. New characters make sure that the to make it more excited and all that, but it wasn't. And I later learned there were these plans of potentially of some form of movie, or if Earth Pony Twilight would have happened, she would have been an inventor. She would have made her own wings in order to fly. But the question here is to be asked though, if that would have happened, if those designs of the main six would have been officially, question is, what about other characters like CMC, Spike, and some other characters like Luna and Celestia? Would Cadence will be back? Would Shining Armor be back? That's another question that never will actually be that. Even though Shining Armor made one sort of appearance in G5 Chapter 5, where Apple Bell actually hold up a photo or a portrait of Shining Armor's face. I was like, what? But that's not the first time, though. I mean, Elderflower, an older unicorn, turned out she was actually directly related to a G4 character. I believe she was the great niece of Moondancer. She was actually the niece, distant niece to Moondancer's sister. So I was like, okay, makes sense. After all, Moondancer was a unicorn herself, so that makes sense. And I was really disappointed when they announced that G5 is going to end, the G4 is going to end, and G5 is going to be replacing it. But it was still a lot of the speculations because even those concept arts when they came out, I felt like, is this somehow a leaked information or leaked photos? I mean, if that would have been the case, it would not be the first time if someone actually somehow hacked in the servers of Hasbro and stole that, because Hasbro had a server hacked twice before. Some of the episodes from previous seasons of G4 was hacked and leaked. So if that would have been the case, would have made sense. But it turned out they were actually even. I don't believe that those were official from Hasbro. I believe it more as fan made designs. Then I later learned that Hasbro or Atomic Boulder, whatever called, they actually had hired an MLP fan artist to help them with G4 and the G5. I was like, what? They already have their professional staff, and they decided to hire an MLP fan artist to help them. That was the first I ever heard of anything like it, and I was really surprised of any of that actually. But a lot of the G5 was in the early stages when it was released. I like new designs of the new main five characters, like Sunny and her friends. I was like, okay, but I was actually a bit happy to know that they were decided to keep it within Equestria. So at least that part was okay to do. But when I find out there's going to be a CGI version, I was like, okay, this is not the first. I was expecting maybe some similar uh, designs of from the MLP, the movie of the main six or other characters of the main five. But nope. But um, based on from the movie, the first movie they made and Make You Mark series, it is not the same. It's not the same designs. I mean, if you look closely to the one from the first movie they made from 2020 or 2021, and from the Make You Mark series, some part of it doesn't even match at in their coloration. And another thing is, it's not the same voice actors. Complete different. But I was really surprised when they actually brought Celestia and Luna back, even for a brief moment in chapter 5, where apparently Opaline had known them ever since they were Phyllis themselves. I was like, whoa, really? But apparently, it was like they just ignored her. And that's the reason that where she decided to, you know, overthrow them. And but there's still part of this I really don't know they actually what they meant about it. Considering considering that in a G5 comics they made, which is canon, where Uplin was the one that caused the magic to be disappearing indirectly in the first place. Because she caused the problem, but the point kind to mistrust each other. She was the one that caused that. But then she was defeated by the main six and some of their allies. But the question is like, what happened to her since? After all, since Twilight put all her magic skills, that her own magic and others in those crystals, and they split off, and there was this barrier in Equestria that prevented Opaline to even enter. Now that the magic is back, this barrier was broken or something. I don't know what they were meant by that part, but it's very it was a little bit well, it was a little bit hard to tell exactly what they meant by it. And there were some other part of this like especially in the story where in part of the story that Sunny told her friends during the sleepover how things happened. Like there was this unicorn that somehow hurt an earth pony that caused the magic teacher simply or the mistrust. And I can't say for if that's actually the main reason. I mean, we don't know that the bullying was the indirect cause of the mistrust because after her misdeeds, even in Ponyville, started showing this distrust to other kind. I saw this scenes from the comics where a unicorn want to go to this establishment like a diner, but they weren't allowing any unicorns, only Earth ponies. And I was disappointed on that. And I was like, okay, what happened? Then after this in G5, when the first movie, there were this so-called Easter eggs all over. A feather from supposed to be uh Twilight, and a footprint that's been hint that was Spike's, and a portrait of Stalls for the beard. But there was even one particular item that was very puzzling if that was actually the real item. Grugar's bell. First of all, Grugar's bell was indestructible item, could have been destroyed. So even after that happened, after the trio was put to stone, Luna and Celestia took the bell and hid it somewhere. Unless they took it back to the mountain where they was up to the cave where they were originally placed, or they decided to put somewhere else. But if that would be the case, if they put it back in a cave, how would the bell eventually end up in the possession of Argyle, Sonny's father? I mean, unlike that, unless that he knew about the bell and its location, and that he found it, the cave, and with the magic gone, could the spell of this magical barrier would it still been intact, or would it be gone along with the magic? If it was still there, he wouldn't have been unable to get in unless he digged another tunnel by hoof all around inside that cave. But it also, if that spell is somehow protecting the whole cave room, like and the whole room is somehow, even though there's how to say I mean, what if there's the whole room itself, even the floor, the ceiling, and the walls was covered or surrounded by this magical barrier, like a bubble, prevented anyone from dinging from an out different direction in order to get the bell. But if that didn't exist, if it was just only the entrance, anyone could just dig in from a different location to grab the bell. But if the bell or this barrier wasn't around anymore, vanished along with the magic, the bell could have been stolen by anyone. But here's another of my questions. Even with the bell, even though that this barrier was gone, and even the main magic Poof, gone. What about the bell's own magic? Since it contained Grugar's own magic, would that magic also be gone? Or would it just remain intact? Because I thought to myself, like, Discord, his magic is chaos, not the typical normal unicorn and alicorn magic. I thought his magic would be completely different based on those pony magic. But it turned out my idea was completely wrong. Because when I read in the comics about this, his magic was also gone around the same moment as the main magic disappeared. So, despite him being chaos, somehow his magic was somehow linked to the main world's magic. So it vanished also. So the main focus on then, Grurgar's bell that contained his own magic. Did it also vanished or will it still be there? If the magic was in the bell even after the main magic was gone, and if Grugar's bell was somehow end up in the lighthouse, wouldn't it have been dangerous for anyone to just simply know that this bell was a magical artifact? I doubt it. For here's a reason. Because this is actually commonly that in the series when Sprout's mother, Phyllis, told that she didn't believe all these stories of Ponycan for all friends. The main majority of the Earth ponies, unicorns, and Pegasus, they didn't believe the stories was real. So that makes sense. So even if he did, the belt still has its magic still there inside, and he had it openly displayed for anyone to see it. And since those stories of Ponycan with friends were considered as a myth, like a legend, so even if the police saw this bell and knew that this could have been Grogar's bell, they probably just dismissed it as a copy or even not the real thing. So maybe they, even if some police saw it, they wouldn't even believe that that wasn't the real thing. So I wouldn't know. But what do you think, guys? Think? Do you think if that bell was the actual bell, do you believe it still had its own magic, or did it vanish along with the rest of the magic?
Hmm. Well, not sure.
What do you think, though, Cody? Do you think the bell could still contain magic even after the rest of the magic itself around the world was gone? So if the magic was still possibility still in it, in the bell, yeah. So like I said, I think it's possibility that since majority of the pony kind believe the stories of ponies were friends was just a legend, stories that like a fairy tale that it didn't even exist, that never actually happened. So if some ponies were aware of the stories of Grugar and his bell, and and since Grugar at the time of G4 was considered as just a story and not an actual individual that never existed. So if the bell was just simply there in in the lighthouse in Maritime Bay, and it's and if even one of the police in Maritime Bay was somehow aware of the bell and about the stories of Grogar, but still regard them as just simply a legend and not an actual individual. So there's a possibility that they reconsidered that that bell wasn't the real thing, and it just simply just for maybe something that all got made based on description of the from the stories. And it's not like it's very. I mean, I can give an example. In Norse mythology, ever since that mythology started in Europe, or especially Scandinavia, my country, people started making Thor's hammer as a pendant or like a necklace. So people made copies of what they portrayed saw how the hammer looked like. And other stories, like say Excalibur, there has always been a lot of descriptions how this sword looked like. So so they made something like that. So maybe and since the bell this Excalibur never existed. So even if someone made a copy of this alleged sword and put it on display in a museum this and say this is the actual sword of Excalibur, but it turned out it was complete fake or just someone made based on the story. So same thing it would have been for Grugar's bell. If some ponies would have been to the lighthouse, saw the bell, and they approved, right soon assumed that was just a copy, was that something that Olga made based on the descriptions from the stories of Grugar. I mean, that would make sense. Otherwise, if Olga were, if he would probably be aware how dangerous this bell is, and he wouldn't even just simply left it out there open so any opponent could just grab it. If the magic was still part of it, if the magic was still in it, and he probably assumed like any pony will, even Earth pony could take it and absorb some of Gurugar's magic and became powerful. So if that would have been the case, he would have hidden it somewhere, well hidden in the maybe in the basement uh, of the lighthouse. But it's difficult to tell. I mean, we don't even know if that was the actual supposed to be Groga spell or that was just a simple Easter egg, as they're called. It's very difficult to tell over the most part of that. I really have no idea, but just seeing it in a scene of Grugar's bell like that when I saw the first movie for the first time, I was like, "What? Grugar's bell? Is this for real?" I mean, we as we all know from back in G4 how dangerous the bell is and how well guard protected they were behind the barrier. So if the sisters they brought it back to the cave, and if the barrier vanished from uh, with along their magic, it's possible that despite it cave, now after a number of years or maybe a few generations, the stories of Grugar's spell's location may just simply went would have been lost. And it's like it happens all the time. Like certain locations of legendary places, like say a lost city or certain item that has been supposed to be placed there, completely gone over time. So it's possible if they brought it back to the location, it's simply been there, but the story and the exact location where the bell was located was gone over time, lost with time, lost over generations, until maybe someone had wrote down the location of the find the bell, and that Argyle came across that information and went there to see if it actually was still there or if someone had took it. But if it was just still there, he took it and brought it back home and just kept it as a memory. I mean, based on the all the information he had in the lighthouse. I mean, from the opening scenes of the of the movie, they showed a lot of information. A photo of a portrait of Starsworld, a feather that's supposed from, at least a alleged feather from Twilight, in a footprint that's as a reference to Spike, perhaps, and some other things that they were in that lighthouse. So even if the bell, if that was an actual bell or it was just some made Easter egg, I don't know. But if that was supposed to be the real the bell, I would have been very curious how he even found it or how it became in his possession, and also like if it still have its own magic and if it's still that dangerous. It would have been really, really, really crazy if it still had its magic. But at the time, like I said, um, yeah, it's very confusing if that was the actual bell and even how he came across it and how he unless here's another thing, unless that he didn't find it on his own, what if he actually found it somewhere like a flea market and bought it from someone else? Hear me out. There's actually a good example. As back in then when I believe it was season 8, where Sunburst, he bought this big barrel at his antique store, and in it, it contained the diary or journal of Stars World. So it's possible that it could have been the same thing as for the bell. Maybe some pony had been to that mountain, found the bell, and didn't know what it was actually. Maybe didn't know the true story behind it. Maybe he just found it an interesting old bell and brought it home and kept it for a number of years and decided, and maybe the same pony or maybe somewhat related to that pony decided to have this flea market and sold it. What if maybe an earth pony somehow did came across this bell and kept it for a number of years and had it in his home in Maritime Bay, and all guys saw this on the table with some different artifacts or items that were for sale, and he saw the bell, and he recognized the description of Gurugard's bell, and it's like, I take it, and he too buy it and take it home and have it there. Even if this pony that had a bell at the flea market and the one, if it was not maybe the same pony who's selling it that found it, what if there's some in the family they find a bell, kept it, and they decide to have this yard sale or flea market to get rid of some old stuff, including a bell. So if the bell was in the possession of that family and they had no idea what kind of bell it was, if they just simply believed this was just an old simple bell without knowing its true origin, I mean that's possible that that could also happen, and that our guy somehow just walking along the street saw this flea market and maybe like, okay, I can use go see if they have any something good. Yeah, or yeah, who knows? I mean, even his family wasn't aware if this the true origin of this bell, how evil it was. They thought maybe it was just simply an old bell that was left behind by someone or someone without knowing this true origin of this, if it was even possessed, even not knowing if it actually had any magic in it. And if that pony brought it back home, and someone, if it was the same pony or someone in the family decided to have a flea market, and that our guy came to buy and saw this item, and he immediately recognized the bell, even though he may have seen a picture, a description, either either seen a drawing of the bell, or he remembers the stories of the bell based on the description. And he realized maybe this could be an actual bell, or maybe just simply a copy. But if he asked the pony who was selling it if they know where this bell was coming from, if this pony is saying that someone in the family found this years ago at Mount Everhoof. If that was found on that particular mountain, Argyle would definitely, with 100% knowing, is authentic Gruagard's bell. And I don't think he was just simply telling the owner how dangerous this bell is, without knowing if this actually contained magic or not. But he, let's assuming that it had happened, that he simply bought it, got it home, and what if it did tested this bell if it actually worked? If it had still its magic, he wouldn't know. But if this magic was gone along the rest of the magic, then he simply, if this spell didn't have any magic, he's just inevitably like just wordless piece of metal. And then he would still keep it as a memory or maybe keep it safe. But if the bell didn't have its own magic anymore, if the magic vanished along with the rest of the magic, the main question here is, did its own magic return around the same moment as the main magic did return? If that happened, oh boy, they have a lot of things to be doing. I mean, oof, assuming that is the real bell, and assuming it still have its own Grugar's magic inside, only assuming from how, just assume this, if Sunny still have it in her possession, since it can't be destroyed, since the original lighthouse was damaged, but assuming if Opaline found out about the stories of this bell and it did exist, and that she found out that Sunny had it, assuming that she will somehow try to make either Misty at the time to steal the bell and bring it back to her, oh boy, then if she would have used Grugar's magic, well, she may not even have to be using the dragon's magic. But oh, that would have been hugely disaster unless Sunny and her friends became aware this bell was Grugar's bell, and they were debating of using Summit's magic in order to stop Opaline, or perhaps use the bell to drain her magic and weaken her. But it's I don't think they would even use the bell against Opaline. I mean, they would even be, first of all, they didn't know how to use the bell in the first place. It could be too dangerous without knowing exactly how to use Grugar's bell against Opaline. I mean, since that as a trio use the bell to drain the magic from Discord, so we don't really know how. I mean, first, it's even though that Argyle had some research information about the bell itself, but as we know, some of that information, that research that he did, was lost after the damage of the lighthouse. Only a fraction of the information, the research that Argyle had, was still saved. So if the research contains some of Grogard's bell in that, or simply can simply tell that it was gone. And well, Mr. Lordy in the comments. I mean, just assuming from that. We don't even know if Grogar's bell would have been strong enough. But even if the bell was the real thing, and the main fight decided they wanted to use that spell against Opaline by training her magic, it's they don't, without knowing the risk of, or even know how to even to use the bell, it's unlikely that they would just simply use it. I don't think they would even use the belt against Opaline, knowing how bad it could have been, or maybe not even know how to operate it, how they even to use it. So, and also, would it be even moral? Would they even lower to the her standard by draining her magic, since she wants to steal the dragon's magic and even the cutie marks from the pony so that she will get more powerful? If they did use a bell against her by draining her magic in the same way, well, they would have lowered her standard the same level as she is. So I doubt that they would even use that way. But knowing the bell is well, Cody, the stream might end soon anyway, so we just passed the 2 hours mark, so yeah. I don't know though about the bell. I mean, I do assuming that the main five would even use a bell against Opaline by taking her magic. It's I mean, she had the plans to do that on other police and the dragons. So I really don't think they would lower Saint to her level by doing the same thing. So I just don't believe that they would do it. But also known as, I don't think they even that Sunny would absorb some of it, some of the magic or all of it from the bell in order to stop Opaline. I don't know if he would. After all, we don't even know how powerful Gorogor's magic is. It could have been too powerful for her to handle. I mean, just look at when they had absorbed magic from Discord. When Cozy Glow, when she wanted to try out to use, she was unable to even control Discord's magic, even if there was a fraction or even all of it. Even Terex said that would be madness. No pony could even handle that type of magic. So at least assuming from that part. So if no pony can control Discord's magic, we can only assume that the same thing as for um, Grugard's magic. We don't even know if the same magic or not as pony magic. We don't even know how powerful it is. If the belt still contain the magic or not, but if it's did, well, it's some of the things we don't know. Even though it's a way over topic of the like over theory about that, but it's an interest idea, but I don't believe that the main five would use the bell to drain the magic from Opaline. I mean, I don't believe that he would have the moral to sink to her level. I mean, if it was me, I wouldn't. Me, I would probably use the bell to absorb some of the magic in order to stop her, maybe, but it's just I wouldn't know for sure if the bell is powerful enough. But if Opaline but if Opaline had learned about the bell and its magic, well, it was nice to know the Equestria as it was. It's would it be too powerful? Oh boy. Well, I should probably end the stream here. I know it'll be 2 hours, and my parents are getting ready to get to bed, and so.
All right.
Perhaps we can do some um randomizer tomorrow or something.
Eh, well, I think my thing resets tomorrow, so maybe.
All right. Well, everyone, this has been
We're
an
dealing
interesting
off. I
stream.
don't know. Eh,
Yeah. Well, see you all next time. See ya. Bye.
And goodbye.